Hi, it's Jen from Shabby Fabrics. Welcome back to the Tea and Cookie series. This time it's for September. We're zooming right along. Kids are getting ready to go back to school. Depending on where you live in the country, maybe they are already back to school. And we just could not resist a fun project here with a classic spool block, kind of a country look, made with a lot of Riley Blake fabric here, and just a touch of a beautiful basic here from Maywood Studio. But this is primarily made from Riley Blake's. They're a really amazing company here in our sewing and quilting community. They just come out with the most incredible collections, and I am so drawn to their fabric. Now, this is a series we've had going on for a couple months now where the kit makes two projects. Whole idea being grab one of those free recipes we have. We have shortbread, sour cream, sugar cookies, or maybe you have one of your own. Get a friend. During COVID, when we couldn't be together, boy, I miss that community. I was doing sewing at home, mostly masks. But I miss the community of being out, when we're sewing, we're catching up and on people's lives and work, and all of that was missed. So we're still making up for lost time. So if you've got a friend that you know loves to sew or might want to learn to sew, how fun to be able to pick up the kit. You make one and they make one side by side. So my job today will be showing you how to make the spool block and make sure your points are coming out just as precise. The kits are obviously the way to go. Everything you need is included. We're doing a really fun self-binding technique that I've covered when we kicked off our series now way back with our February project. So if this is brand new, you'll want to pick up those pointers and that instruction on how to do the self-binding technique. That's really cool. The only other thing you might need to add is a little bit of fusible fleece, or if you've got some scraps of batting, that's what you're going to want to sandwich in between your top and your back there. This is a series we're running as well as foundation paper piecing. If you've been wanting to learn how to foundation paper piece, and I was a holdout for a lot of, decades, I'll admit that. And now I'm absolutely hooked, and I know you will be. A free video tutorial series where you can watch the process. And again, darling projects, maybe on the entryway, and then you've got something on a lovely little table, right? For being able to have some cookies or some luncheon with a friend. So we'll talk about how to make the spool block come out where the points are just so, because you can imagine if this was askew, it would be very noteworthy and you'd be like, no, I'm seam ripping. So I'm gonna talk you through the steps that are going to help you to be able to be successful. And that always starts with pressing your fabrics really well with a fresh blade and a rotary cutter. You're going to make some nice clean cuts. So you're starting off with really good ingredients, just like cooking, right? Good results start with excellent ingredients going into that recipe, and quilting is not different. That step's done. So you're starting off with your fabrics being just perfectly cut. So let me just show you where we're going here. Let me just press this out. This is our goal, and we're going to start there and say this is what we're striving for. So you can see that we start off with just a rectangle. We simply draw a line on the back side from corner to corner with a straight edge. I'll just grab that. Any straight edge will do. Don't need anything in particular. You're just wanting to be very precise about drawing exactly on that diagonal. And we want to be able to sew directly on those lines, okay? And we've done that in advance. And as you look from the backside, notice you can't tell that the white's there. That tells me that was sewn in the exact position. Because if I start to suddenly see some fabric creep out to the side, seam rip. Grab that seam ripper. That's always in my sewing room. I've got a couple of them. So I'm never tempted to not seam rip when I should, and go ahead and get that realigned and sew exactly on that line. Once you have that, we go ahead and press away. And we trim. All right, we lift up that flap. lay any 1/4 inch, and I love that Creative Grid has the dash line showing me exactly where that 1/4 inch is. We're trimming away on both ends of that. And now we have, and I like to repress, right? Just go ahead and repress that. Now you have your upper portion or bottom portion, they're identical, of your spool. And we simply make another one of those, right? And then we have the upper and bottom portion of the spool. Center is super easy. Again, it always starts with precise cuts. Notice how this fabric has a specific direction of that. You have enough fabric in your kit that you're able to cut very specifically so that your gingham is going straight and these are going straight. So that's just something versus just going for it. I like to get a nice clean cut and make sure everything's beautifully aligned. Right side together, sew the 1/4 inch, sew the 1/4 inch, and that's what this piece will look like here. And we went ahead and pressed toward our pink. So let me get this out of the way. Now, one of the things people have said about sewing spool blocks is sometimes they're not sure how to pin and align that. Because if you just place these right side together and pin left to right, you might actually miss those points if your piecing isn't as precise as you would hope that would be. So let me give you some pointers of where to visually line up to make sure that these points right here are coming together. As we look from the top, and I'll try to capture that from the overhead video, notice this cream colored polka dot ends right here, and that fabric is right there. Visually, I am trying to line those up so that front to back, this right there, and that edge right there are front to back, exactly in alignment. That's what I care about the most. That's going to help ensure that that point comes out where I'm hoping it will, which is meeting up beautifully right there. And I'm going to put it in a pin. And again, I just take that look to make sure that that cream and that cream are stacked. And let's go sew. I'm also going to introduce my seam guide right now. I want to sew an honest 1/4 inch because you know I tend to sew on that chunky side. And I've put the diagonal seam tape on my machine. It's there all the time. And I have just, using my seam guide setter, figured out exactly where that sweet spot is. And if I see that black line boldly on my machine that I've set up, where I've set up my Cluck Cluck Sew diagonal seam tape, I know if I put my seam guide right alongside that, I'm good to go. Warm up that seam. Let's open that up. Look how beautiful that is. Now, if we talk about pressing, you can see this seam wants to, it's just listing this way. Go ahead and go with that. Press it from the back, press it from the front. And look how our points are coming out perfect. Now, I've seen quilts that have much larger spool blocks. You have a much greater distance where things could go a little bit wrong. This is a smaller block. So realistically, if we were to just pin left to right, if you have a habit of sewing a pretty darn good 1/4 inch seam allowance, there's a high probability that without this very almost hyper focus on that pinning, the block's going to come out pretty good. We just want to be able to nail it. And so that's why I want to be able to call your attention to, instead of pinning the way I used to in the beginning when I just didn't know better, I pinned left or right no matter what day of the week it was, what project it was, because I didn't know different. But you do know to pin those areas that are most important to you first and simply make everything else fit. So let's go sew one more seam and let's complete our spool block. And again, with that hyper focus really on those points, our blocks are just coming out exactly as we would hope. Love that. And you know, you're going to get your collection of course, your spool blocks here. Fussy cutting specifically, as I said, notice how our gingham is not a little wonky. When I see those quilts, boy, they jump out at me. We've all seen them, right? We've all seen those ginghams or plaids that are just notably not aligned, and I think they do provide a little bit of a level of distraction. So if that's important to you, be able to just fussy cut clean off your one edge, make your measurement, make all your spool blocks. You can see that we just now sewed them together. We added our borders. We had our background field. One of the things you love about our kits is that prefused laser cut applique. You don't have to trace and be able to cut out that scallop. We've already done that for you. You're just going to simply place that on here, marry this side to this side, do your self-binding technique, and then you're off to doing the top quilting. And this is such a fun thread set. I love that thread set with all the colors. And I wanted to point something out to you that they had a lot of fun doing in the sewing room is hopefully the overhead camera can pick that up. We did some vertical lines here, and that was to represent really the thread that was on the spools. We thought that was kind of fun. So if you want to do something like that, or maybe something completely different on that, but that's where you get to take that creative liberty. But again, we really hope that you're enjoying tea and cookies and having community as we sew. Kits, as I said before, are the way to go. We are running low on some of our kits. So if this series speaks to you, not only get this kit, grab the other ones in the series. And if you have been a holdout, or maybe you're a perennial lover of foundation paper piecing, pick up those kits as well and join me on that series. We're having a lot of fun. Subscribe. That is how you know about these series and so much more coming your way. I'll see you soon.